There's been no small amount of buzz about Star Wars Battlefront, the newest FPS from the developers of the Battlefield series. As the latest iteration of a much-beloved series, it has some seriously huge shoes to fill, and it does that with mixed results. There are some things that Battlefront gets wonderfully right, but it has its share of problems as well. First and foremost, let's talk about the gunplay. I describe it as feeling most like a long-range Call of Duty, except with more target leading due to the travel time of blaster fire. If you're not a huge fan of Call of Duty's looser, faster style of gunplay, you may have trouble with this. There are 9 multiplayer game modes, ranging from the large, iconic Walker Assault to the smaller map modes like Droid Run and Drop Zone. Of these, I was really surprised to find that I actually enjoyed the smaller map modes more. There's no single player campaign, but I didn't find myself missing it because there's so much content that can be played either single player or co-op. This includes a challenging wave-based survival mode, battles against AI with or without heroes, and a selection of training type missions that were actually awesome at teaching the player how to do some of the more specific and difficult maneuvers in multiplayer, such as tow cabling an AT-AT with an airspeeder, or taking out an X-Wing with an AT-ST. I have to say, I know a lot of people are really unhappy with the flight controls in Battlefront, but I kind of love them. They are simple, and I found them very intuitive to learn, and actually had a ton of fun in the Fighter Squadron mode. I say this as someone who's never really gotten into flight in games like Battlefield, so maybe that's why this adjustment was such a natural one. It reminds me a heck of a lot of the space battles in Battlefront 2. The style of flight definitely seems better suited to high-altitude dogfighting, and can be a little frustrating when you're trying to take out targets on the ground, because not having super precise controls can definitely have you face planting into a cliff. Because I get asked about it a lot, I feel the need to underline that just because DICE made Battlefront does not make it a Battlefield game with a Star Wars skin. It is not. There are some similarities, such as being objective-based and being in the same engine, so the graphics are similar, but that's about where it ends. There are no classes, no squads, only one side has vehicles, and the maps are generally smaller. Walker Assault maps are huge, but you only have access to a limited section at a time. The gunplay is entirely different, and spawns are always random unless you spawn on a partner. Map pickups are a huge factor, dictating vehicle use, heroes, and special weapons and gadgets. In other words, Battlefront may look like Battlefield, but it plays nothing like it. Right off the bat, I can say I was pleasantly surprised by Battlefront's relatively clean launch. I've experienced very little in the way of desync issues, which has been a huge problem for DICE launches in the past. The game is wonderfully optimized and ran well even when I tested it on an aging processor and GPU without sacrificing much prettiness. With the graphics turned up, it's nothing short of breathtaking. Another nice surprise is that the game feels pretty balanced, which is no small feat considering the asymmetry in so many of the game modes. Even though the Empire has access to vehicles such as the AT-AT or AT-ST and the Alliance do not, the win ratios seem pretty on point. Most of the heroes also seem really well balanced against infantry. They can be powerful and used to great effect, but they can also be taken out by normal infantry, and they definitely require some skill to play. I was relieved to find that the game has done a really great job of feeling Star Warsy. You'll recognize loads of sound effects and music as being directly from the movies, and the environments that fans know best, such as Tatooine, Hoth, and Endor, all feel completely consistent with what we know and love. The only time this falls down is with the heroes. The voice acting on several of them is pretty terrible. I mean, seriously, how hard is it to get a deeper voice guy to voice Vader?
I will be there shortly to confirm your assessment.
I also found playing them to be oddly immersion-breaking, not just because of the odd voice acting, but also because of the general clunkiness of the movement and the limited ability set. This brings me to some of the problems I have with the game. The first is the general lack of customization possibilities for your guns and your kit. With only 11 guns, not having the ability to adjust or customize them in any way, such as changing the sights, adding a silencer, that kind of thing, feels really limited. The weapon cards ease this a bit by giving you 10 additional weapon choices, but it's not a great solution since they always have a cooldown, they can't be changed during a battle, and one of your cards is almost certainly going to be a grenade. Giving players a limited ability to outfit themselves in a way to deal with the situation or enemy tactics seems to remove a level of depth from the game as well as a sense of variety. Another problem is the absence of squad mechanics. You can form a party for purposes of joining together in matchmaking, but you're not guaranteed to be on the same side, and you can't spawn on anyone except your single partner. The only way you even know where your party members are is that their names are green on your HUD. For a game where victories are decided by objectives and not just individual kills, There are remarkably few ways to actually work together with other players. Finally, it's really unfortunate that Walker Assault has only 4 maps available. Walker Assault is such a unique and iconic game mode that starts to wear kind of thin when you're just rotating through 4 maps. It's a bit frustrating to review Battlefront because it does some things so incredibly well, but it also has its share of flaws. Adding a few more maps and guns would go a long way to extending the replayability and life of the game, but as it stands, it feels slightly shallow, and I worry that players are going to feel like they've seen everything there is to see sooner rather than later. I've had an amazing amount of fun playing it, especially when playing with friends, and the nerd cravings for Star Wars goodness have been absolutely satisfied. How long that will last is kind of hard to say. If you like Star Wars and the idea of a casual, objective-based shooter with COD-like gunplay sounds great to you, then I'd say pick it up. I really wish I could recommend this to anyone and everyone, but if you're on the fence about it or looking for something more in-depth, you may want to give this one a pass.